Bonnie Gani, everyone. This is Professor Alman Ra, Professor Emeritus, California State University, Long Beach Africana Studies Department, where I taught for over 34 years and served as its first administrator. I'm also a former city councilman for the city of Compton, as well as a member of the Compton College Board of Trustees and the Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees. One of the founders of the Black Institute Research Center. And we just want to welcome you here to the show, along with my co-host, longtime educator for Compton and Linwood and Compton, Joe Hembrick, a seasoned professional. Hembrick is an educator who taught and served as an administrator and coach in a span of 39 years. He graduated from Compton High School in 1971, attended Los Angeles Southwest College, UCLA, and Loyola Marymount, and California State University, I think Dominguez Hills. Hembrick is an educator who taught and served as administrator, blah, blah, blah. And Compton High School in 1971, attended Los Angeles Southwest College, UCLA, Loyola Marymount, and California State University, Dominguez Hills. He has a AA degree, BA degree in history, teaching, and administrative credentials in education, and a master's degree in education administration. Joe Hembrick has an extensive background in football coaching from 1976 to 2000. He coached at Los Angeles Southwest, Compton Community College, Linwood, and Centennial High School, all in California. Joe Hembrick professes that all of his so-called academic institutions provided him job training, but his real education was obtained at Esselwan Bookstore and from various libraries in Southern California. Here I co-host along with Rashaki Maskani, a longtime educator for Compton Unified School District, as well as a homegrown Compton community person, as well as a longtime activist, student leader and activist at Cal State University of Long Beach, where he earned his BA in Black Studies, I believe. And so we want to get started with our outstanding guests. We are very happy and elated to have a young lady that is blazing the trail as an entrepreneur, as well as a person that deals with women and self-care, as well as an individual that lives in Atlanta. And her entrepreneurship, where she had just done a lot of things and started businesses and corporations. And we are just happy to have her here to let us know how we can deal with self-care, as well as her understanding of how we can get into entrepreneurship. So without further delay, we're going to start with Anana Johari Harris Parris, who is self-developed and entrepreneur, as I said, as well as a person that deals with how we can heal ourselves and strategically. So Anana, you know, what we'd like for you to do is tell us about yourself. If you want to add things, tell us about your businesses, tell us about things that you think Black women and Black men should know about their health and about where you think we should be going as a people. Asante Sana.
Asante Sana, thank you for having me. I am just ridiculously honored to be in the company of you all. The background, the love of our people, and then the commitment through this program that you all have shown. I did a little bit of research on the program. It's an honor to be here, to have this level of tenacity and scholarship and grassroots initiatives all converging in one is really healing, and it's a type of salve that we need. So I want to say I appreciate that you all have me here. When I heard about not only the show, but also from Brother Reginald Muhammad, he mentioned you all were not only doing great things, but that there was an interest in talking a little bit more about our well-being as a people, as a community, and as individuals. I jumped at the chance to be able to share more. So I do want to walk everyone through just a little bit. I have a couple of slides that I want to share. I'm a little visual, and so I like to share images. And I'll tell you a little bit about what brought me to this particular work. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I like feedback, so feel free to unmute. The Zoom life can get you if you don't hear human beings. So I would love for you all to just respond to me a little bit. If I ask if y'all are all right, can you just tell me you're all right?
Yes, I'm all right. Yes.
All right.
Doing well.
Yes, come on now. All right, good. I love it. If you could give me permission to share my screen, then we can get started. And I will take a moment and pause so that I can hear from you. If something comes up for you all while I'm speaking, it is a healthy practice to actually write down what comes up. Before I get deep into my own background, we've been taught to feel messages come up, signals, information from our body, from our spirits, from our hearts that comes up naturally. But to survive in these environments, in this society, we've come up with these survival tools that suppress the messages until we get into a safe space, right? So I'm going to encourage you to use this time as an opportunity to practice letting it come up, and then you taking it a step further, being strategic and actually writing down what comes up for you. It doesn't mean you have to share it with me, but this is the way that we more strategically pay attention to ourselves when dealing with issues that have to do with our community. Is that okay?
Yes.
Try that, yeah?
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna share my screen. And what I'm gonna focus on is leveraging the idea of strategic self-care in our community as a critical component of community development. And I think this is important because typically the term self-care is looked at, it's over commodified, right? It's kind of exploded on the scene some years ago, and people kind of treat it however they want. But for us, for our people, it is a revolutionary act based upon the way we've been taught to suppress not only what we critically need, but we've been taught to not leverage what it means to be well and feel healthy and be able to communicate from a place of well-being. I'll give you some brief background as to just where I'm coming from. There's 3 different organizations. Sister Care Alliance is a not-for-profit organization. We focus on self-care as a form of social justice and social justice as a form of self-care. I've run a civil rights law firm for 7 years in the past. I've advised other businesses and law firms. I've done lots of organizing. I was raised by organizers. My father and mother went to Southern University. They were one of the leaders of the student protest at Southern University that resulted in the death of 2 students, similarly to Kent State. Most people don't know about the HBCUs that happened. So I was raised in an environment of activism, attended a lot of Pan-African schools growing up, and was really also taught by my father with his engineering mind how to take what I believed and be structured and strategic about how I applied what I thought was either injustice or be a very process-oriented approach to coming to a solution. So this heart-centered, purpose-driven mission that I have is not only backed up with experience, but I'm going to share with you the reason that I'm here and why this work matters to me. And then I do want to hear from you all. Why would this idea of taking better care of yourselves matter to you? Is that all right if I share with you?
Yes.
You got me here?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate the verbal response. Thank you.
Okay.
So being raised primarily by my father, he's an engineer. I studied electrical engineering. I did a lot of science-driven work. I did some business work. All of that, the community organizing in DC to Atlanta, none of that mattered the day that I went to deliver my son. Everything that I had learned, I could write a business plan with my eyes closed, but I had no idea that I was missing a strategy to take care of myself in one of my most vulnerable states. So I go in to deliver my son, and I'm really thinking, hey, I'm healthy. I have everything that I need. This was in 2010. And I ran into complications that most Black women run into, where they ignore what you're saying. They really press you to your body to move in ways, and they push you to deliver in ways that you really don't need to be pushed. And I let them know after 3 dosages of an epidural that I could still feel. Now, I was 36 at the time, I'm 48 now. And at the time, I really spoke up. I didn't have a problem with expressing myself. I didn't have any issues with feeling comfortable with sharing what my needs were. I said, I can still feel. So they gave me 4 dosages of an epidural, and I still could feel, but I figured, let me just keep going through this delivery process. Finally, his heartbeat stopped the 3rd time, and it wasn't coming back. So they called a code pink, and all the nurses and doctors rush in. I had a few family members there. They were over there crying, and I'm really kind of just in la la land thinking they're gonna fix it, just fix it, right? So they wheeled me off into the OR, and they had the oxygen mask on my face, and I took the oxygen mask off my face, and I told the anesthesiologist that, hey, I can still feel, because I'm starting to catch on now. They're actually gonna perform the C-section, but I could still feel. So the anesthesiologist tells me, no, you can't still feel. If you could still feel, then as soon as we cut, you'll feel everything. And then I'll say trigger warning for those who need a moment from hearing about any type of trauma. Feel free to back away or put your sound on mute. So I laid there for a second. I did not feel any need for any type of aggressive move. I was not thinking strategically about my own well-being, and they began cutting, and I felt everything. But the priority was not me. The priority was what?
The baby.
The baby. So as soon as I felt what was happening, I started trying to come off the table. I had a primal response to just the amount of pain that was happening. So they all had to hold me down, but they finished the procedure anyway. And it was, of course, the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my life. And only after they got him out did they administer any painkillers, did they then attend to me. So that really brutal experience woke me up to, it didn't matter how much I knew about the Gaussian equation or atmospheric science research, or how much I knew how to write a business plan. It didn't matter that I felt like I could, express myself in all these other environments. None of it mattered if I didn't know how to take all of these beautiful, wonderful, cool tools of strategy and planning, and I could not attribute it to how to take care of myself in a way that could literally save my own life. Y'all understanding what I'm saying?
Oh, it's beautiful the way you explain it.
So go ahead, brother. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's just enlightening as far as your analysis of what you was going through, and how you was going through it while you was going through the delivery and the treatment. And you thinking about, well, hey, look, none of the education you had and professional skills you had was of help at that point. And so I'm pretty sure you're gonna tell us what came to the conclusion. I mean, well, lifted you to where you are now.
Yeah, it woke me up to realizing that I did have tools, but nobody told me how critical it was to apply them to my own well-being. Nobody told me that the strategies that I could have implemented right? Prior to, not that it was my fault what happened, but there are things that I wanted to have the ability to really plan and position, so I could have an advocate there that would be able to enforce certain things, so that I could be aware of what could potentially happen, so that I could understand that that medical industrial complex is a profit-making center. And that if I did not have a clear understanding of what my critical needs needed to be in any situation, that how can I effectively advocate for myself if I didn't know what actual self-care looked like and how I needed to leverage my knowledge of myself in those scenarios. So after quite a bit of therapy, one, my son survived. He's 12 years old today. So
Congratulations.
thank you. And I had a much longer journey to recover. I had to decide every moment of every day with a newborn, do I want to live or do I want to die? Every choice I made to choose to take care of myself was taking me either in the direction towards life or towards death. When I decide to say, what do I need? And then I address it, I'm moving towards living and living well, not just surviving. When I ignore that question, what do I need? When you ignore that question, valuable information that comes up from the inside of you is missing, right? So the decision-making that comes with your own well-being starts with you asking yourself that question and then pulling it out. So personally, I began to dig out of the depression, the PTSD, the postpartum, the everything. It took me a very long time. And what I realized was I can plan a march, I can do quite a few things, but I was going to take every single skill set that I had and I was going to figure out how to come up with a practical application of what it would look like if we got strategic about applying self-care, right? And addressing what our needs are in a super strategic way. So that's what I did. I started to investigate and take all these different ideas of basic systems and frameworks, and I ended up developing the strategic self-care program. I published a book a few years later called Self-Care Matters, a Revolutionary's Approach. I started this organization, Sister Care Alliance, as well as other businesses. We do trainings, survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence survivors. Therapists are trained on the program. Lawyers are trained on the program. It complements what these existing basic services are, because it does not help. It does not help if you only know what you need, but you don't create a strategy and plan to address it. It does not help to go to your therapist by itself if in between your therapy sessions, you have no strategy for applying what it is that you're learning. Now, I'm 100% a proponent of therapy. If therapy is what you're doing, stay in therapy. To be strategic about your self-care steps in between therapy sessions, that is where that revolutionary step becomes yours, and those revolutionary options become yours. So within the book that I authored, it's now used through Southern Center for Human Rights and several organizations as a reference tool for what it would look like to strategically really create your own self-care plan. There's so many other things that have come through this. We certify people on the program, but I do a lot of these types of engagements because you have to figure out, do I really want to look into the idea of what do I need in order to create a self-care plan for myself, and how would that be leveraged in my community? So I'm gonna pause for a second. Does anybody wanna interject? I'm gonna get back to the presentation, so I wanna break it down a little bit more, but that's really what inspired me to get to this place.
All right, we'll start with Sister Linda. Do you have any questions?
Well, she said so. Of course I do. And she has so many things. And thank you, Anana, for coming on. But I wanted to ask you just one thing. With this program that you have you ever dealt with children from foster care?
Yes.
And I know you said therapists. What about with the foster parents?
Yes. Yeah. So we have several different locations. We have different chapters as well. And so we travel and not only establish these different trainings in different cities, but we also established official self-care days. And we've been doing that since 2011 in several different cities. So we partner with local organizations that could be an organization from a foster care organization, domestic violence organization, a financial health and economic development organization, grassroots social justice organizations, whatever within the community that needs to be able to come together underneath this umbrella of we all have to address our needs and be well. And each of these pieces of the puzzle should come together under this umbrella of a self-care day. We train all the organizations on it. So for two reasons. One, to raise awareness, right? Whether it's foster care, whether you're dealing with maternal mortality issues. If we as a people are afraid to dig on the inside and ask ourselves, what do I need? If we are not taught how to begin to be more strategic and prepared when we step out into the world, it's not going to come naturally. It's not. Any more than you know, an athlete can just step out and just win in a particular sport. There has to be some training. And so that's what we focus on. But to answer your question, Sister Linda, yes, absolutely. We definitely have worked with foster children and foster parents before.
Then do you have any other questions?
No, she mentioned human trafficking. In what aspect do you how do you deal with that, with human trafficking?
So
Because you're talking about a whole different mental level.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciate about the program itself is the practical application of it is digestible, even when you're going through some extreme trauma. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. But that extreme trauma, crisis, and grief being sandwiched together all at the same time, especially with the human trafficking survivors that we've worked with, they're looking for some practical, plain language that makes sense to them, that's not so dense that they can't apply it when you leave. So for the human trafficking program, those who either were just removed from those environments to those who are still trying to develop some new basic skills, we're teaching them this particular strategic self-care program so that they can develop some autonomy around their own wellness, so that they can begin to identify what they need as opposed to reacting off of survival mode and just really trying to protect themselves as opposed to feeling safe enough to look on the inside. And so it's the same program, but the way that we apply it, depending on who's being trained on it, we employ different sensitivities in those scenarios. So for human trafficking survivors, they're dealing with fresh trauma, safety issues. They're dealing with layers and layers and layers of stressors from a past that's still triggered by the present. And then you're also dealing with the scenario where they're still not safe because those who have trafficked them are not always behind bars, right? So there's still looming threats out there. So you're really talking about security, safety, and then strategic wellness that can be within their grips. And I'll tell you all a little story a little bit later. I hope that helps to answer your question, Ms. Linda.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
Brother Joe, do you, Historian Henry, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question and comment, or comment. Evening, sister. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm great, I'm great. I saw something, I guess it was on Hulu, and it was regarding, Black women delivering babies and the high number of them that after they deliver, they go home and their issues,
Yes.
end up dying.
Yes.
And I was shocked that the program said it was about 60%. I'm like,
yes.
Yes. I'm not technological anyway. I'm old coach, so I'm old dinosaur. So anyway, I'm waiting to get on YouTube to to view that documentary that they have. I believe it's out of Chicago, I believe. But they had all these brothers who have formed an organization because their young wives have died from recently delivering babies.
Yes.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's been going on because my delivery was in 2010. And the trauma associated with mine included post-infections, things that they did not do correctly. And had I not taken myself back to the doctor, I had a spreading infection so fast that, you know, I could barely touch the skin on my stomach without it being in excruciating pain. And I did not have the follow-up care. I did not have anything. And like I said, I was 36, well aware of all kinds of stuff, but I didn't know about that. And this, as they say, medical industrial complex is not here to take care of us.
Right.
And so what happens is Black women are going in, they're treated, and it goes back historically, of course, right? And we're treated as not being able to register what our pain threshold is, the same as others. So they expect us to take more pain. They give us less pain medicine. They check on us less. The demeanor in which they engage with us, the nursing, all of that, the care all around is doesn't matter. From Serena Williams to whomever, right? You're not going to get the same care. You could have internal bleeding and they're not going to check for everything. And it extends to a lot of who we are as a people, whether it's Black children, Black women, Black men. We're typically treated as more so cattle in the medical industry. But for Black women and the dangers of delivering a child, it's dangerous in the best case scenarios, right? But the level of neglect that exists when we are in that very vulnerable state, and then the fathers of the children not being trained and educated on how dangerous it is, two, how neglectful the medical system can be and unresponsive when a Black woman is laying there saying, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Well, she begins to wane because her blood pressure is dropping because something else is happening and nobody's monitoring that. A father could be standing there completely innocent and helpless and uninformed as to how poor the medical care is because he doesn't know. So there's several victims in this entire experience. And once the brothers start to investigate what's actually happening and they realize how brutal the process is for us in the best, as they say, medical environments. I remember being in a doctor's office, maybe for an ultrasound, and a sister was saying that she was, and this is right on Piedmont, very nice facility, right? The sister was like, I'm just not feeling well. I'm feeling a little faint. And they just ignored her. They walked past her and she just passed out on the floor. Passed out on the floor. They had to try to pick her up, and the level of stress and pain and trauma that Black women go through within their bodies before getting pregnant, that's ignored. Also lays the groundwork for how much we're ignored once we're also pregnant. So I don't know if that helps, brother, but it's exciting to see how much attention is being paid to it. And I hope that that documentary and other research studies and organizations that are looking at maternal mortality for Black women, that it continues, because it's been an epidemic. It's been an epidemic. Thank you for that comment.
I have my own kind of wellness thing that I've developed for myself in terms of looking at nature. I'm a big nature person. To me, that's everything. To me, that's all the hallelujah and the shout that they do on Sunday.
Yeah.
I do nature to get mine. And then, with the food that I eat and the stuff that I drink, which is water, and Black people do not drink enough water at all. And I keep telling them that your body is mostly water. You better put some in there. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. I tell this story when I do trainings about how much we beat up on ourselves for what we don't do to take care of ourselves, and the amount of energy and time we put into subconsciously and consciously putting ourselves down for what we're not doing, and how easily we are pointing out in the other person what you're doing incorrectly, right? I don't know who remembers this old school commercial when you would go into the movie theaters You walk in, you sit down, the lights will go down, and those pre-commercials will come up. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you walk in and you see this glass of ice come up on the screen. And off camera with the Dolby surround sound, you hear, which is what?
Soda.
Yeah. And then you see this red and white can float onto the screen. And then it pours onto that ice in the glass and the bubbles come up. Now, if you're sitting there and you're thirsty and you see this brown fuzzy liquid fill up in this glass and the Dolby surround sound is in the air and you see that little peppermint red and white straw sticking out, what are you going to immediately think?
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I want to drink it. Okay. But if you're thirsty, what does your body need?
Water.
Right. So the idea that we can first identify what we need when dehydration is typically the natural state of most people, right? It's pretty far-fetched for someone to start going, oh, what do I need? I need water. But then to have the millions and billions of dollars in marketing inundating you on a regular basis to confuse you between your needs and your wants, it's not just that you are flawed or that there's something wrong with you for not doing all the things you're supposed to do to take care of yourself. You are existing in a society that profits off of you not taking care of yourself. When you don't address your needs, you're susceptible to someone else marketing to you what they want you to purchase. You with me?
That's subliminal advertising. Is that what you're
It's
Yes.
subliminal, it's overt, all of it. If you have not grounded yourself in the morning by asking yourself, what do I need spiritually, emotionally, economically, artistically, physically, educationally, and socially? And you are not maintaining a regular plan strategically to address those needs, whether you're taking baby steps or big steps on a regular basis, then you are literally walking around potentially operating in a state of crisis or just a deficit in those categories of care. And all it takes is one person to market or one person to do something, and you start to absorb and adapt other ideas other than what you actually need. And so it doesn't mean that you can't go buy other things and eat other things and do other things. What it does mean is that there is no secret formula to it. I don't have a magic wand. It's pretty basic. If you ask yourself and you address and you organize and strategize around what it is you critically need, you will anchor yourself in a way that makes you less susceptible to marketing. It empowers you to ask for help in the specific areas that you need it. You better prepare yourself in the face of a society that puts money above your life, right? You're going to operate differently. And so you begin to look at the idea of taking care of yourself, which is the same as, right? The same as know thyself. Because as you begin to ask yourself, what do I need? You learn yourself more. You learn what time of the day am I more thirsty? What time of the day does my iron drop long? What time of the day do I need a hug, right? What's going on when I'm gonna learn the best? What time of the day do I absorb information the best? The more you ask yourself, what do I need? The less susceptible you are to all types of influences. So to leverage self-care, it means to leverage you knowing thyself, right? In a way that allows you to be more strategic. So I'm just giving you a very elaborate kind of adding on to your comment. Yes, there are Black folks that don't drink water. There are Black folks that are not meditating. There are Black folks not stretching. There are Black folks not going to the doctor. There are Black folks not going to the dentist. There are Black folks doing all kind of stuff, right? But the way we got here was not because we chose to not take care of ourselves. Two, people will continue to cover their payrolls. Like there are payrolls that are handled based off of us not taking care of ourselves. And then three, the type of trauma that we will have to peel back from the inside out just to get to the answer to the question, what do I need? Takes courage. And it's not easy for anybody, right? So Is it impossible? No, it's not. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, and I'm going to get back to just kind of a little bit of the training. When you get that first taste in your mouth of what it feels like to ask that question, right? What do I need? Answer it in whatever category is speaking to you the most, and then repeat that process. You'll never, ever lose the taste for that type of activity again. And you'll continue to do it over and over and over and over again. I'm gonna tell you a really good story about a sister, a young sister that was in one of my trainings in a little bit. But I know for a fact that when you look at strategic self-care, strategic wellness, however you wanna label it, whatever makes you feel comfortable, the more strategic you get with it, the less you need me or anybody else around to enact it. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense.
All right. So let me go back to, oh, go ahead. No, Linda, you want to say something?
No, I was just saying that made sense. That's it.
Go ahead.
We got a couple more people, two more people that want to make comments before
Sure.
you go. Rashiki?
Yes, this must be cosmic. Because a lot of the things that she's sharing, I'm gonna be writing about after we finish our project, Professor Ra. It's like she talked about, or I could say you talking about know thyself.
Mhm.
Joe Hembrick did two shows on know thyself. You talking about strategies. I speak about that quite often with my
Mhm.
daughters and my students
Mhm.
of how to develop strategies to do what you need to do for yourself. It's sort of organizing yourself to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And it's just I'm listening to you and some of the concepts that you're talking about. I'm going to be writing about that. I could just put it out there now. You have conscious evaluation and unconscious evaluation. I'm gonna talk specifically about that in the book that I'm gonna write. So it's just amazing the things that you're saying and how I can identify with it because I'm that way. And then also like Brother Joe was talking about, you know, he has self-care through nature and
Mhm.
herbs, and you know this is things that we do on a consistent basis, and it's just like I say, this is cosmic, so I'm enjoying it.
Oh, I'm glad.
Sister Nana, I just want to say how much we appreciate your wealth of knowledge that you're sharing with us today. I just have a few questions and perspectives, and and then there's just so much that when you say revolutionary
Yes.
in your work, what are you saying that you have to turn your health practices totally around and go in a different direction? Are you talking about, not from the standpoint of social justice, but from the standpoint of health justice and health treatment strategies? What did you mean when you labeled the end of your book, self-care, getting a self-care plan, revolutionary? From that standpoint?
That's a good question. So the idea of being revolutionary, right? And of course, I mean, the number of books and scholars and debates and discussions on what that word means, we could be here for a very long time and have a great discussion. In terms of self-care, in terms of caring for yourself, in terms of addressing your needs on a regular basis, right? Whatever titling or phrasing you want to use. When you are not doing that, when you are not addressing what you need on a regular basis, typically you're not doing that for two reasons. One, your environment is not supportive or conducive of it. Or two, you just don't know what to do and how to best take care of yourself. So let's start with the environment. If everything around you is supporting and benefiting off of and interrupting the process of you taking care of yourself or benefiting off of you not taking care of yourself, it is revolutionary to behave counter to your environment. It is revolutionary for you to fight against the grain. Here's a really basic example, brother. How many of you have ever gone to an in-person speaking engagement? Somebody you really wanted to see, or you didn't really want to see, but you respected them. And you're in the front row or the second row, and you got to go to the bathroom. Who's ever experienced that? Unmute.
I have.
Okay. And then you sit there and you think to yourself with this full bladder, should I sit here and stick it out? Or do I excuse myself, put up that one finger, and I just interrupt this speech, and then I go to the restroom?
No, I usually just sit there and hold it.
Okay, right. I was about to ask, how many of you have just sat there and just held it?
No, I haven't. I got up.
Not no more. You getting up, huh? Well, the general environment of not interrupting a speaker in exchange for you holding it is considered a societal norm, right? It's normal for you to hold it, to suppress a critical need to actually go to the bathroom, right? But what would happen if you kept holding it in and holding it in? What could happen to your body?
Cause damage.
What kind of damage?
And you could matter of fact, you could go on yourself.
Yes.
And that's going to create an uncomfortable situation.
Yes.
With you in the immediate environment. You
Yes.
know what I mean? It's embarrassing.
Yes.
It's just, so what I'm getting from this,
well, hold fast, hold tight. So if it's a norm in society to hold it, and the damage that it can cause is common, then when you choose to break from that norm, it could be considered revolutionary because you are not allowing the societal norm to dictate your behavior. Well, whether you're talking about spiritual and emotional needs, economic needs with your time, money, and energy, physical, artistic, social, educational, anytime you're breaking from a norm that supports you not addressing what you critically need, that's revolutionary.
Okay.
Because you have to battle not just the fact that others will address the fact that you've interrupted the process, but you now are going against the grain on a regular basis, and that's uncomfortable. You think about children in a classroom. How many critical needs exist with children in a classroom that typically get ignored in a school system that would rather them just sit still all day? It's considered revolutionary when you deal with these systems that are benefiting from you not addressing your needs. Is that helpful, brother?
Yeah. I have a couple more questions.
Okay, and then Brother Rashiki also had a comment.
Rashiki.
Mm-hmm.
Rashiki?
Rashiki, excuse me.
Well, he just left for a minute.
Okay.
Well, let me just go ahead. Rashiki, you have another question?
Well, I was just saying, it seemed like she was leading to saying that you really don't need to neglect your needs. You need to pay attention and address your needs and do it naturally, instead of like if you sitting there and you holding it and you really got to go and you don't want to miss something, you need to choose missing something versus, the other outcome, which is negative. So
right.
That's all.
Yeah, or if you're more concerned with other people feeling disrupted or how you could disrupt your environment just to address your critical needs.
Okay, that's good. Anana, a lot of the people, as you said, are addicted, not only just to the advertisement of beverages, but salt and sugar. And many people don't just drink to squash their thirst, but it's also to satisfy that addiction. And they don't see themselves as addicted.
Yeah,
They just see themselves as satisfying their needs.
yeah,
And then, the role of detoxing, going cold turkey and going through the withdrawals when you a person that just started to employ a strategic plan to revolutionize your health. There is some process by which you may experience some uncomfort by withdrawals, and because your body has gotten used to the sugar and the fatties and the calories that you put in it every day, and the fried foods. And so now, until a doctor tell you you're gonna die if you don't stop, most people go until a doctor tell them that.
yeah.
How do you address, and I have a couple more questions after that, the addiction to sugar and salt, as well as the challenges of detoxing and starting all over again to people who have been not only addicted to the food, but have bought into Western educational health, industrial medical complex, and believe in it as if it's like they believe in church. I mean, you have people run to the hospital for all kind of reasons because they believe in it. And they believe in the doctor like they believe in a preacher. And then the doctor tell them to do this and do that. And he's making money prescribing medicine from the pharmaceutical company that works with his practice, or that his hospital said, give him this type of situation. How do you get into that mentality of dealing with those issues? I mean, how do your strategic plan fit into that?
Well, there's something called self-care rock bottom, right? When you're dealing with addiction, and that's
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? It's called what again?
Self-care rock bottom, right? And so it is as its title describes. When you get to the place where you're at rock bottom in terms of being able to address your own needs, right? So you think about something like the ICU. There's a term you all can look up called self-care deficit. It's a term created by this nursing theorist, and her name is Dorothea Orem. And self-care deficit and her theory and her research was based off of mapping the process and the journey of a patient, something like from an ICU, which is the intensive what?
Care unit.
Right. When you're in the intensive care unit, brother, should you feel bad about asking for a doctor's help? If you're in the ICU, in the hospital, should you feel embarrassed that you need an actual physician?
You shouldn't.
Exactly. When you are at a place where you are ill-equipped to address the needs of your body, if you're in an environment where it's deemed acceptable, the emotional weight and pressure that someone would typically carry, the embarrassment, as we talked about earlier, the stress, the frustration. Why can't I figure out? And Black folks, we always figure we're supposed to know everything, right? We feel this pressure, we beat up on ourselves that we're supposed to be experts at everything when we're not. The idea that we're in an ICU and we need help doesn't feel as bad as I'm at home, my body is physiologically craving and fighting me to get sugar. And in some instances, you are operating in a critical state if you are not making your own decisions, and an addiction is. But because the visual image of just sitting in your own house and your cabinets having sugar all over the place and you reaching for that sugar on a regular basis, because that has a different emotional responsibility that goes with it, or this belief that you're supposed to handle it all yourself, which is different than if you're in an actual hospital ICU. Are y'all with me so far? Because those two very different, just basic environments are regarded differently. We respond to ourselves with less compassion. We increase this meter of embarrassment so we don't ask for help. We believe that I should be able to do this on my own, and that is never the case when you're talking about a clinical addiction, which is what happens with shit, right? And then when you are in the company of others who have the same unrealistic pressures that they put on themselves to solve problems like addiction alone, without help and guidance, when you're in the company of others who feel the exact same way, who beat up on themselves the exact same way, who are their own overseers in their own mind, get back to work. You don't need, there's no compassion, no self-compassion, right? When you're in the company of others who think the exact same thing, it makes it feel impossible to climb out of that. So it's a simple question to say, well, it's just sugar, you should stop eating it. But it's not a simple experience and journey. So my answer to that question is the way that you begin addressing that is some people have to hit rock bottom, and it's unfortunate. Some people have to get to that place so that they can pull themselves out of their living room and unfortunately end up in an environment where it then registers, I may be in a state of crisis. And then there are others that may go to an event that paints a picture that gives them the freedom to really explore, is this a critical need, or is it just something that I really am making my own choices? So that would be the answer to your question.
Okay.
I hope that that's helpful.
Okay, the whole concept of self-delivery goes all the way back to the beginning of us as a people, especially among Africans. Most of our treatments was by designated individuals who helped deliver children on the continent before there was doctors and before Western invasion amongst their own communities and ethnic group. And they found remedies and herbs and then various forms of muds and things of this nature for curing. As when we came into this country and the Europeans started teaching us to do what they do, and we became addicted. But there were mid-mothers all the way for Black people, all the way up to almost the 60s and 70s because of discrimination in hospitals. So many times, most people were born on the couch with mid-mother delivering the child, except for complicated things, like you said. For whatever reason, the natural birth seemed to be working then for a lot of people. And I don't know this data on those that had, serious morbidity or mortalities at birth and things of this nature. But this is not, I'm just saying that, we have a history of relying on self-treatment because even in the Holocaust of enslavement, the European would call a veterinarian, not a doctor, to treat us. And it wasn't to save our lives, it was to save investment.
Keep it going, right.
So when we look at this issue of the challenges, my wife had a challenge on our last child, and she didn't have sciatic nerve damage and organ damage until they did the cesarean. But she didn't realize the issues until later. Then there was a sister named Sheila Ringer, who was a student at Cal State Long Beach. They let her bleed to death in the emergency room by putting her in the emergency area and then forgot about her. And she ended up dying. When you had, what's your son's name?
Zaire.
Zaire, okay. And you say he's 12 now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question and then I hope it's not uncomfortable, but is that your first child? An only child?
That's my only child, yes.
Yeah. And you had him at 36?
I did.
And so did they try to say that one of the reasons you was having complications was because you waited that long to have a child, or?
No, what happened was I had an ultrasound literally the day that I was sent to the ER or to the hospital. I went 10 months with him. Okay. He was in there with free rent and food and he was not trying to come out. So I go to the ultrasound and I had a tear in my sac. And so that's what prompted them to send me to the hospital. When I did the ultrasound, he didn't have a cord wrapped around his neck. He didn't have any issues. The hospital created my issues. When I got to the hospital, they were inducing labor to force the labor out. And all of the unnatural contractions caused the cord to be wrapped around his neck twice. So it had nothing to do with my age.
Okay,
Yeah.
would you give us an example of a strategic plan?
Mhm.
First, would you give us a hypothetical issue of working with a group or individual, and you're being their consultant or advisor on strategic plan? What are some of the plans that you would tell? Because your primary focus is women, according to your Facebook. I mean,
Well, for the Sister Care Alliance, it is,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
Wellness and Justice Group and then Self Care Agency is for everyone. So the Sister Care Alliance is a not-for-profit. We do a lot of social justice work. We do a lot of coalition work. We do a lot of underground work for sisters who are in crisis. And then we also teach strategic self-care to the trafficking survivors and domestic violence survivors, and then those who are living with crisis. But we teach it to everyone. And I'm glad you asked that question. I want to circle back to something you talked about when you talked about, we would give birth on the couches, and we have now gotten attached to the medical industrial complex to, give us our solutions. I also will say that we are a far more isolated community. And I think that women in particular, Black women in particular, are missing lots of support. The idea of having a midwife at home and years ago, the sense of community and the amount of aunties and sister friends that would surround you through the process of a pregnancy is different than it is now. There are a lot of isolated Black women, even within marriages, who are suffering, who are missing the elders touching them and holding them, combing their hair, fixing them foods, changing the sheets on their beds. A lot of that is also missing. So I think that's also contributing to a lot of the demise of our well-being. So I wanted to slide that in there. But in terms of coming up with a strategic self-care plan, it takes first an initial introduction to what brought you to me, why are you here, what has happened in your life. I did a training after the insurrection occurred with like over 250 judges and lawyers and all this stuff. And they were, losing their minds, and just everybody was all over the place. And I had this one lawyer come up to me and say during the training, this self-care stuff doesn't really work for me. I've done massages and sound baths and all this stuff. So it doesn't work for me. So I asked her, I said, well, before you did all of that, did you ask yourself, what do I need? And she said, no. I said, well, self-care is about addressing what you critically need. If you were laying on a massage table and your bladder was full, what do you need? You don't need the massage. You need to go to the bathroom, right? And so if you're not going to sit with me or anybody else trained with strategic self-care consulting and be ready to begin addressing what your needs are, that's the first step. The first step is being able to talk through and peel back all these layers of fear and frustration, embarrassment, and be honest and courageous about discussing what you need, and then you begin building plans through that. But even before we have those in-depth conversations, you have to learn. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that's most important to learn is that when you want to, let me get past these. This is just the social justice and self-care work that we're doing. This is me. Now you see this little brown face down here? Are y'all looking? See this little? That's me. This is what Toto Chule in Washington, D.C. in the 70s. And you say me? You see me
Yeah.
down there? And this is my big sister, Melissa. None of these little brown faces came out the womb with the strategic self-care manual. Would that be fair to say? Did any of your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents pass on this strategic self-care manual that said spiritually, emotionally, artistically, economically, socially, and educationally, here is a plan for how you want to repeatedly address your needs? No, none of us received that.
No,
So what,
no,
ma'am, would you say, Linda?
no, I've never received it either.
Yes, I
Yes.
didn't get it either. But somehow, this is my little face as well, somehow through me looking at these more strategic ways that we approach all kinds of things, developing businesses, engineering, and finding the scientific method, all of these different frameworks that we use to just investigate other things, including ourselves. I wanted to be more specific about identifying what I need. And these are just some placeholder categories. You can pick whatever it is you want as your labels. But in each of these categories of care, I began to realize, and I asked those that I work with to begin investigating, if you can't answer the question, what do I need in this moment at this time, literally like right now in each of these categories of care, that is the first step of the work, because we are brilliant. Once you start learning more and uncovering more, it's a snowball effect. So you begin to first say, I need to understand that I am more than just one category of care. And you also have to learn, I cannot hide from the categories I don't like to deal with. Did y'all hear what I just said?
Yes, I did.
So an example of a strategy is understanding what you need to even pay attention to yourself and addressing your self-care needs. So for instance, you may want to hang these categories of care on your mirror as a strategy for you. I'm super visual. One of my walls in my bedroom, I painted with chalkboard paint. You know what that is? It's paint that when you paint it black, it turns whatever it's painted on into a chalkboard. And so I have to see words and goals and things that trigger different things in me. If I don't see it in my face, I'm not doing it. That is a strategy that I use. And so when you begin to develop your own strategies, they have to be customized or they won't work. I would never go to somebody and say, oh, paint your wall with, because maybe that doesn't work for them. So there's a journey of learning what you need in each of these categories, and that takes time, right? When you begin to know what you need to take care of yourself, right? You begin to improve how you engage with others in the community. Because typically what happens is when things are happening in a community, we're impacted, a need arises, right? And then ideally we respond. You should respond with what. What'd you say, brother?
We couldn't hear you.
Yes, we
We couldn't hear
typically
you.
need to respond to that need by taking care of ourselves, but then also engaging in the community in a way that also responds to the community. Now, this is what the best case scenario, but you know what doesn't happen? Y'all gotta say, what, Anana?
What? What, Nana? Anana?
We don't stop at the end of the day and ask ourselves, I was impacted by that, now what do I need? We typically skip to responding, but then the response is not thought out, it's not informed, and so we are not really responding, we're reacting. Ideally, we should be checking in with ourselves in each of the categories of care. And ideally, the community organizations and resources should also be supporting the needs that we need to as individuals and as a community address. Now, that's the best case scenario, right? But what happens is trauma slides on in there, and it interrupts our ability to even, what is this down here? Wording becomes more challenged when you're traumatized. It's hard for us to even come up with the words to express ourselves, let alone this beautiful scenario where you just begin talking about what you need and then you're strategic and you write it down. That is just not the reality for where some of us are if we're drenched in trauma, right? And this whole triggered response to trauma interrupts that supposedly smooth process of just speaking what our needs are, right? And let's say you're helping people who are traumatized. you also are absorbing their trauma. So I want to get to the fact that, one, the idea is, if you're going through your day and you experience either by helping others or you're experiencing a trauma, you've got to interrupt the process by stopping and asking yourself, what do I critically need? You would be shocked at the potency of doing this 5 days in a row. You would be shocked at how much information about yourself you've been operating without. You would be shocked at how much more informed your decisions will be in the morning if in the evening you do a check-in with yourself and say, what do I critically need in each of these categories of care? And I'm going to tell you something. Typically, when we're not addressing self-care within the community, when we're not leveraging it, but then we go out into the community and we say, we're going to educate you, right? We're the Community Education Network, and we're going to feed you with all the best information, the facts, the strategies, right? People who want to receive and absorb all this, they could experience an overwhelm of information because they themselves are operating in a critical state. Their emotional capacity to even handle what's being shared begins to bottom out, right? And then their own ability to identify what they need while learning from you is not sharpened. When all of this is enhanced, right, you begin to regularly ask yourself, what do I need, when you want to leverage it. And you also begin to ask those in the environments that you're servicing, what do you need to feel safe? Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Let me stop this for a second. When you begin to offer yourself more compassion, when you get more strategic with yourself, you actually translate that to the people that you're leading, the people who you want to help facilitate into wherever it is that you want them to go. You start asking them the question and you listen. You say, hey, what do you need to feel safer in this environment to learn what you want to learn, or what I would love to teach you? You begin to ask the people you love, that you're close with, that you're intimate with, that they're your family, you want to see them succeed. You begin to realize, when was the last time I asked them that question? So when you're talking about social connections and family connections and the bonds that we want to strengthen in the community, right, which is another form of leverage, you're not going to strengthen a bond in a way that you really want to be able to grow it if you cannot ask somebody what they need, and then receive it and hear it, and then strategize a way to not only be aware of it and remember it, but to address your own needs at the same time. And you can do it. So let me pause for a second. What's coming up for you all when I say those different types of things around leveraging self-care in the community and then also for yourself?
Well, I wanted to share a strategy that I have that keeps me focusing on what you're talking about. When I find myself talking about others, I'm talking about them in whatever kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I get to a point where I say, okay, I need to stop talking about them and focus on myself, and look at my flaws and see what I can do about them, instead of pointing out other people's flaws and what they're doing. It's like you're looking external at other people, but it takes away from what you need to be doing with yourself. So I kind of use that as a strategy now to say, focus on what I need to be doing with myself versus talking about people. You know, how we have a bunch of people that you can talk about all kind of what other people are doing, but what about you? What are you doing?
Right.
So I had to come up with that strategy to hone myself in on the things I need to be doing for myself. So that's a strategy that I came up with probably within the last 6 months.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And for those of us who are out here already having started investigating ourselves, looking into ourselves, coming up with strategies, when you look at developing a comprehensive self-care plan, you're not going to just be focusing on what you haven't done. You actually are going to begin to celebrate, to your point, Brother Rashiki. You'll begin to celebrate, man, I've been really killing it in this area. Like I'm doing a good job. And therein lies, right, that type of comprehensive look at yourself. Therein lies another strategy of bringing more joy into your life, right? The brother says he likes nature. How many different categories of care does that hit maybe for him? Because I'm a nature person too. I love to go walking. Sweetwater Park out here in Atlanta is, I love to. There's water, I need water. And then the greenery and just, nice, calm nature. That's spiritual and emotional for me. It's physical. If I'm walking with someone, it's social. So another strategy I can offer is if you layer the categories of care, if you have an activity that allows you to hit more than one category of care at the same time, that is a really potent activity and strategy for you, right? Like I love salsa dancing. That's my thing, right? So that's artistic, it's physical, it's social, right? And if I'm learning a new move, it's educational. When I go salsa dancing, I know for a fact the potent impact on addressing my needs in more than one category of care at the same time is going to be just bigger than if I were to choose to do anything else. Unless I'm operating in a critical state, like with fatigue or something like that.
Brother Hembrecht?
Oh, yes.
Brother Hembrecht? Okay, well, I want to ask you a question. When you develop these strategic plans for individuals, how do you determine what type of plan they need to address the issue of developing a plan for them? I mean, do you do a diagnostic methodology, or do they just tell you what's wrong with them and then you help them with the plan?
It's a journey, and that diagnostic process is addressing what it is that you need and asking the question and sitting in the session and learning, but it does not happen in just one sitting. You begin to learn, wow, over the next few days, I need to be more aware of what my needs are. I need to learn this idea of asking the question first. So there's an educational component first. And we may talk through some stuff, but then after a few days, we need to circle back to, I need you to write down what comes up for you. So I don't tell them what they need. They practice learning what they need, because the goal is to not need me, right? If you're developing a strategic self-care plan, it is not for you to become dependent, right? The goal would be for me or anyone else to be a resource. Until that can happen, it's just like going to a personal trainer. You go to this personal trainer to get to a place where you're creating muscle memory. So you have to develop a muscle memory around what your self-care activities need to be. We meet on a regular basis and you start to learn what your needs are. I help you put it in a framework that allows you to then begin to erupt this beautiful strategic self-care plan that's customized for you, but it's not a cookie cutter, just add water. It's about what you feel, how engaged you want to be, how courageous you want to be. And then the outcome is an actual tangible plan, as well as muscle memory for when the plan has to change. Does that make sense? Because life's going to change. If you had a strategic self-care plan before the pandemic, I guarantee you it changed. But you would not have to circle back to me because you've already learned strategies to ask yourself again, what do I need? You'll know the importance of writing that down so that you don't have to just trust your memory, because trauma can definitely drain your brain of a lot of your memory, makes it hard to remember things. You learn these actual activities that leaves you not dependent upon me. So that's what I teach. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Anana?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Linda.
Oh, thank you. Is this the same as a strategic plan? I do a vision board, and a vision board where I cut out pictures and words because I'm very visual.
Yes.
And I put in the middle of it this year, in fact, in 2022, I put self-care for myself
Right.
because I was ignoring myself. And I put things and pictures and words of things that I want in my life to manifest.
Uh-huh.
Is that the same as a strategic plan that you're speaking about?
So what that is doing is it's helping you to inspire yourself, re-inspire yourself because it's visual, and
Mhm.
to really flush out what some goals are. Goals
Right.
that have a tie to your purpose, to what you feel, right? And so a vision board is more about goal setting, right? And I'm really not into terminology wars. I'm really more so into knowing what really resonates with you, but you have to have a systematic way to approach it. And let me explain.
Okay.
If I show you what random self-care looks like,
Mhm.
can you see this slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so random self-care looks like this, right? In a 30-day process, you could just randomly say, you know what, I just randomly took a bath today. Or you know what, somebody invited me to a vision board event. And you know what, I'm gonna randomly go. It wasn't on my schedule. I don't regularly do vision boards, but I'm gonna go. That's still self-care. Or you may read a book. You didn't plan on it. You went to an event at the Community Education Network. You heard about a really good book. And you know what? I didn't plan on it. It's not on my calendar, but I like the idea of that book and I'm going to read it. When you randomly take care of yourself, you're randomly exposed to life happening as well, right? And so something could happen. Maybe, you lose a job or something hits, or you hit a rock bottom within those 30 days. Random self-care is okay, but it does not really prepare you and fortify you for what's going on in your life. Strategic self-care looks like this. You begin to write down what your critical needs are in different categories of care. You plan, you actually get your phone out, and on your calendar, you block off 30 minutes, 10 minutes to ask yourself, what do I need on a regular basis? You may join a self-care support group, right? So that you can be encouraged. And then you come up, just like Brother Rashiki did, with strategies that keep you what? Engaged. So let me show you. If you go to sistercarealliance.org, there's an actual sheet you can download. You don't have to put your email in or anything. You just download it. And you can begin to write down what your needs are for that moment or that day. And you can also write down what your goals are. So, Sister Linda, when you are doing a vision board, those are pictorial, visual reminders, right? In an artistic way of different goals you have.
Correct.
Strategic self-care says, here's what I need, and this is a goal. And every single day or week or month, you're going to circle back. So what step do I need to take to not only address my needs, but also move towards the goal? That's the difference between strategic self-care planning and vision boarding. This is about
Right.
what are
Wow.
the regular steps that I need to take to make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, I like that. Thank you.
So there is no better or worse between the two. They're complementary. When you get to the place where you're tired of the random nature of your self-care, to your earlier point, brother, where you asked about, sugar addiction and all of that stuff, when you begin to hit rock bottom and you realize that you are living in a random way, you're just randomly going about things in terms of your wellness. When you get tired of that, for whatever reason, right? That's when most people begin to welcome other ideas. Is that helpful, Sister Linda?
Definitely. Yes.
I just have another question for you. And again, thank you, Anana.
Yeah.
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote a book called How to Eat to Live, not live to eat. But
I saw that. Yeah.
And they also practice fasting. And they pray all the time. And so that's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, Carter G. Woodson wrote the book, The Miseducation of Us as a People.
Yeah.
Now, how do you deal with people who don't think they have a problem, but their health is bad and they're not taking really good care of themselves, but they just think it's a natural flow
Right.
for the life that they're living? How do you get them to want to develop a plan?
Well, honestly, the first thing that I have to do when I encounter someone who I see is what I call it is self-care suicide, the gradual lack of taking care of yourself until you die in that category of care, whether you're slowly not taking care of yourself artistically, so you begin to feel like you're dying creatively, you're just not involved, or economically in terms of your time, money, energy, you're gradually ignoring how you're spending your time, how you're using your energy, or how you're even handling your money, right? When self-care suicide is visible and someone is spiraling, the first thing that I do is I address how it's impacting me. Because if I begin to check in with myself, to Brother Rashiki's point, how is it impacting me to see them go through that? And it's difficult. It's very challenging. I have family members that you can watch make decisions, and it can really be difficult. So you have to first address how it is impacting you, and you have to be honest about what it's doing to you, because it's traumatic, right? They're going through some trauma to their body, their organs, their mindset, their spirit, right? And that trauma is impacting you, and to watch any type of suffering can impact you, right? So I start there, because if I am going to engage them, which I do not force, nor do I make assumptions that anybody wants me, right, to get engaged. But I first deal with myself, because the tone, brother, that I use, the love that I feel when I engage them, the compassion, the patience, the additional resources, if I am not equipped, right? If I am ill-equipped to offer what it is that they need, all of that gets developed before one word comes out my mouth. All of that I examine within myself first to say, what do I need to be of a support to them? I have not walked 1 mile in their shoes. I may not know what it's like to have experienced what they've experienced, but somebody else does, or there's a support group, or there is someone who is knowledgeable about someone that's going through that type of suffering. So before one word comes out my mouth, I start there. After I've done all of that, in terms of how prepared can I be before talking to them, I first would like to know what is attracting them, right? What brings them joy? What makes them smile? What are they attached to? And if the suffering or the source of the suffering is also their source of joy, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to fight a battle that I'm ill-equipped to win. Okay? So that means I need to speak to someone, right, who's knowledgeable in that area, when somebody's source of joy is also coming from their source of suffering. And whatever their brain is telling them, this is joyful, this is good, it's effective, right? Their brain has convinced them that this source of, whether it's a person in a relationship, okay, because we deal with a lot of domestic violence survivors, people in dangerous environments. We also deal with people in workplace scenarios that are damaging and harmful, right? But because their paycheck is coming from the same workplace that's toxic, right? You have to begin in a place where, what do you need to take your steps towards freeing yourself and detangling yourself from that source of suffering? What would you need to begin to move out of that relationship? What do you need? Like, what would be the best case scenario? And having that conversation, as opposed to me telling them what they need to do, is the first step. Once I have done my investigation, After that, I don't take on a responsibility that I cannot handle. There are support groups, there are programs, there are all kinds of advocates out there that are ready to support those who are looking to move from one experience of suffering to release that suffering.
Mhm. Well, it sounds as if, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the strategic planning is centered around health correctives and prevention for people who want to, prevent themselves from getting into a health crisis, as well as correcting. But is that correct? Your strategies
It's one of them. It's one of them. It has a lot to do with tapping into the interest that the person has within themselves to get better and to become more strategic. It could manifest, it always manifests physically, because our bodies change the more we pay closer attention to what we need. But it manifests financially, right? The way you even think about dealing with money or things that are attached to money that may stress you out. It manifests socially, your ability to even deal with other people. Some people don't even have the emotional capacity, because their needs are not getting met personally, to engage with other people with any type of patience. What? I gotta go talk to people? I have to go somewhere and engage. I don't even have the capacity to make it through the people I have to talk to. I don't want to go around those that I need to talk to, maybe advance in my career or find another job. So it's not just about the health outcome, but the mindset and changing the behaviors. There is a direct impact on the stress hormones that get reduced the more you address your needs, right? And those stress hormones break down your immune system. Everything is interconnected. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
You're muted, brother.
Just a minute.
Sure. So if there are no other questions, I definitely want to hear what stuck out the most to you, right? What came up for you? If you were to write something down that has to do with you, you don't have to share what it is, but if there was something during this session that came up for you, I repeated the question, what do I need, enough times on purpose, because I'm talking to your subconscious, not your conscious mind, right? Your subconscious, your conscious mind is like, okay, all of this is logical. I've heard this before. This makes a lot of sense. Your subconscious mind, right, is saying, if I were to keep anything out of this, what do I really need to keep? And so I'm interested, if you were to walk away with something that you could hold on to that can make a big difference in how you address your needs on a regular basis, what stuck out to you? Anybody?
Well, I'll say this. It's more so reinforcement for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm traveling in the direction that you're already in. So it's more reinforcement, and it's motivation, because all of it was excellent to me. So it's not just one thing. I don't know if you saw me shaking my head, but it was all positive.
Mm-hmm.
And it just it's sort of like I said, it's cosmos, or I don't know a good word to say, but I can say cosmos. It's cosmic, and I'm just, it's inspiring for me to hear this, because it's the same things that I'll be thinking about on a consistent basis, and I'm going to find a way to get it out there.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And for those like you, brother Rashiki, for those like you who've already been practicing strategies, who are already, and with this project that you're pushing out, right? What I would encourage you to do is answer the question, what would it look like if I were to upgrade my self-care activity? What does upgrading my strategy look like? To get this book out, what do I need, right? So asking, what do I need spiritually to finish this book? What do I need economically to finish this book? What do I need for each category of care? I would say, because you're already in that vein and you're already working some self-care strategies, it's time for an upgrade now, right? And you can hyper focus the same question and the same categories of care for that specific project, because what's happening is when we are doing something that's tied to our purpose, there's so many tentacles attached to it that we can't rightly figure out what all is governing the pace at which we can produce it, like the pace at which we can put it out. You follow what I'm saying? And so if you were to upgrade what you're already doing, which I don't know what that would look like for you, but if you were to upgrade it and more systematically, right, maybe once a week, maybe every 3 days, go down those categories of care and hyper focus it on the project, what else could that look like? What could come up for you? So I just wanted to offer that to you, because that's how you can begin to enhance all the phenomenal work you're already doing. So I can't wait to read your work. Please keep me posted.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Mhm. Anybody else? What stuck out for you? Sister Linda, or I can't see the other brother's name. I apologize. It just says hi 240.
That's Brother Joe.
Okay,
Go ahead, Linda.
okay, what stuck out for me when you started at the beginning, when you said about surviving or something. I'm trying to read my notes because I was writing all kind of notes. And it was, to think deeper and plan strategically.
Yeah. Yeah. You know why? Because everybody else has a strategy. These systems are not functioning because people are just randomly going about their day. These
Absolutely.
systems are making money and are functioning and expanding and conquering in some instances because they have a strategy. And we are walking batteries for, this society, and that random way of caring for yourself is not going to work. We deserve.
And can you say the name again of your book again?
Self-Care Matters, A Revolutionary's Approach.
I'll send it to you, Linda. I'll send you the cover.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's also on Audible. So I read it on Audible. I'm more of an audiobook person, so I had to make sure.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we have a video training. If you go to any of the sites, you go to selfcareagency.com or ananajohari.com, and you can take the online training course. It's self-paced, and it'll teach you exactly how to begin creating your self-care plan. And you can do that.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. It has like a participant guide that comes with it and everything. So,
Brother Hembrick, you have any comments? Closing?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say that documentary I was speaking of earlier, I believe it's called Aftershock.
Oh yes, that's it.
Yeah. So second of all, getting into my nature thing, I have a big garden. I watch the bees. I watch the growth. I can watch it just grow, and then I ingest it. And I sit in the sun a lot. But Black folks trying to stay light, so they don't want to be out in that sun. But I stay in it, to build up my chakra inside and outside my body, to help me get in tune with the ancestors and all of that. Yeah. And I'm developing my African spirituality through the books of the Medu Netter, so I can get on the right side of my brain, functioning wise, thinking wise. So that's what I do, and I try to, share, with our people, and it's difficult sometimes, to get them past certain, hangups that we've had on us since, since our enslavement. But anyway, your theme stuck with me. What do I need? I'm gonna listen to this again. I kind of had to break away for a minute because I'm cooking and whatnot. I'm here by myself. I'm home alone, so I got to do that stuff. But anyway, I'm going to listen to it again because there's a few things I kind of missed out while I was over the stove and whatnot when I missed my last comment. But anyway, I really appreciate your insight, and I'm going to keep listening to it until it's in me. You know, practice makes perfect. And like you said, build a muscle memory. And I was talking to my golf coach, and I was saying muscles don't have no brain, to be remembering, but I'm kind of over that now.
And good for you for addressing your critical need. You had a priority. You had a need that was a priority to cook and make sure that you're eating well over there. So
Right. I developed a big old vegetable garden in my backyard. I stay away from processed stuff. There ain't no sodas in my house, no alcohol, none of that. Just that water and those good vegetables out of the garden. Try to eat them, and the herbs I take. I'm a Shackley product person also. This helps out tremendously when I can't get the food that I need to eat. I get that from my vitamin regimen. But anyway, appreciate it. I'm going to listen to it several more times until I totally ingest it. And then I hope to speak back with you at another time if possible.
yay, thank you.
But she's on Facebook, and she has an extensive Facebook information about her businesses and about her just her family and everything. It's beautiful. But I just want to say to you, first of all, I want to thank Brother Reggie Muhammad for letting me know that you were a dynamic person and that a person that could add to our listeners and visit and those that watch our programs on YouTube. As Joe said, he's going to revisit it, and a lot of people do. They don't come in, but they do watch it. And I just want to say, Asante San, which is many thanks to your mother and father and sisters that make up your community. You're well raised, well educated, both from your academic attainment from universities, HBCs, as well as from your mother and father's activism and their inspiration to get you to not only help yourself, but want to help others. Very few people realize the gift of helping others, and we get a lot out of that ourselves, of course. But at the same time, your skills are well needed, and I'm sure well appreciated by those that put into that strategic plan. And I'm pretty sure they've benefited also. I want to say to you that you are always welcome to tune in on our shows. The Conscious Corner is on every Monday at 6, and Community Education Network, which is hosted by Rasha Key, is on Wednesdays. I know it's late in Atlanta, but at the same time, you're welcome to come back and make contributions. And we're going to put your books on recommended reading on our book recommendations. I'm pretty sure Rasha Key is going to tell you that. And I'm going to order the book, both of them, probably by tomorrow, and on Amazon, and make them a part of my arsenal, my personal arsenal, and weaponry toward recommending others to get the book also. So we want to thank you for spending this evening with us. I want to thank Sister Linda also, who also highly recommended you as a source of phenomenal information, and we deeply appreciate you. And I just want to say to you and your family, your son, that he's in good hands, because I'm pretty sure he got a strategic plan.
I'm gonna tell you really quickly with my son. Thank you for everything you just said. Like, I absorbed all of it. Thank you. But my son, I remember when he turned 7, he's 12 now, it hit me that I had never asked him, what do you need? And I realized that I was nervous that he would say, well, I need you to be a better mother. Right? Or he would, your mind makes up all kinds of stuff. So one morning I woke up, I said, I'm going to ask him today. So I said, hey, Zaire, what do you need spiritually and emotionally? And he sat down and he looked for a second and he said, I need more hugs. And I wanted to just cry. I was like, oh no, I'm a bad mother. But then I didn't. I stayed quiet. And the second thing he said is, I need to drink tea with you more often in the morning. I really like when we used to sit and drink tea together. So I offer that as a closing short story, that you're not to learn this, in my strong opinion, just for yourself. It's also to educate you on how to better communicate and engage with those you love. And it helped me to realize that the more I ask him what he needs, the more I don't have to run out to get him Legos every 5 seconds to make him happy. Same thing with yourself. So I just so appreciate it. I think that Compton needs a self-care day.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to talk about that so we can do some training. But thank y'all for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Rashi Key, won't you go and wrap us up? Tell us what's coming on Wednesday and make any closing comments you have.
Okay, well, I'm definitely enthused about reading your information. I'm gonna get it also. And it's just very enlightening to hear other people speak about the things I think about. So I really appreciate it. Now, if you could stay on a minute after we conclude, so I can I have a question for you. And so what we have on Wednesday, let me go to it. We have another good show. All our shows are good, in my opinion, and great. I just need to share the screen. Let's see. 1 second here. I have it on there we go. Needed to make one little adjustment there. Okay, so we have Kwabena Sakiti Jigjaga Rasuli. And the topic is the sad, embarrassing, dangerous state of Black music. Now, this is, and I want to highlight this, this is the music that's being popularized by a lot of, outlets and all of that. And that we're in a state of war. So they're gonna do everything to popularize music that's gonna tear us down. So that's gonna be the subject. And also we're gonna have a guest host, which is Brother Straw, which is his brother. And both of them are nephews of Geronimo Jijaga Pratt. So that's going to be very interesting. So Brother Straw is going to host for us. So that should be a good one. And what I'm going to say is Conscious Corner, and each one teach one. Everybody have a good evening.
All right, and y'all take care.